our vision is a just world free from poverty. Those words are intentional.
Yeah.
Poverty, of course, is the seat of so many issues in communities and young people just across the board.
Welcome back to the Women on the Move podcast. I'm your host, Sam Saperstein. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Alison Moore, a seasoned executive whose career in media and technology has been marked by transformative leadership and innovative vision. Alison brings a wealth of experience to her role as CEO of Comic Relief US, where she leads with a commitment to social impact and community empowerment. Her journey includes pivotal roles such as Chief Business Officer at Condé Nast, overseeing strategic initiatives for women-focused brands like Glamour and Allure, and Chief Revenue Officer at SoundCloud, where she spearheaded global monetization strategies in the digital music industry. Throughout her career, Alison has championed innovative approaches to engage audiences and amplify social impact. And it is a delight to speak with her today and have her here with us. Alison, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We've had many conversations prior to this one, so it's nice to really record this for others to see and hear because you've shared so much with me about your career and the things that motivate you, and it's great to bring this to another audience. So
yes, and we'll bring most of the stuff we talk about to this audience.
Just not cocktails.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so here we go.
Yep.
So you've had a really interesting career in the media and technology spaces before Comic Relief US. And I would just love for you to talk about the roles you've had to date. How did you actually take them? What was your thinking when you went from one place to the next? How did you build that career to really lead you to where you are?
Yeah. I mean, it has been an interesting journey. I have people ask me that all the time, like, what is the connective tissue between all of these disparate jobs? And I think, as we were talking earlier, I started in a poli-sci major, which, really wanted to take me to a trajectory to the Hill and working in Capitol Hill and all of that area. And for a variety of reasons, that wasn't right for me, although I could have probably decided that a little earlier than when I ended up almost headed there, and then kind of changed mission and went down to Atlanta and really fell into, by luck, a role with Turner Broadcasting. And so that's what kind of sparked my media sort of journey, if you will. And going from, if you look, went from Turner in Atlanta to HBO. I moved to New York in 1995 at HBO. And then the arc is left HBO to go to Daily Candy. Daily Candy was owned by NBC Universal, amazing women's sort of lifestyle platform, digital. And then TV everywhere at NBC Universal, SoundCloud, Condé Nast, and now here. And, I think a couple common themes there. First, I always have felt like I was an art major for a couple of years before the poli-sci side. So I have this pull and desire to be in and around creatives and creativity and people who make things and put things out in the world. And, when you come to HBO, you recognize very quickly that you are the business operations person, whatever you're doing. There's multiple people doing multiple things in a business ops side at HBO, but it's all in service to the making.
Yeah. And
the people who are, really putting expression and changing hearts and minds, whatever that is, whether it's humor or whether it's really serious kind of topics or just, pure, just fun and entertainment. And then I think, in a TV environment, that felt very moving to me. In a publishing environment, whether it's digital like Daily Candy or even Condé Nast, the editorial voice, the curation, the people who are, thinking about how they're going to put things in the world, that's the same sort of idea. And frankly, music to me has always been a through line of everything I've done. I, played saxophone, little known fact. Yeah. In high school, no one should look up for any kind of,
Okay.
And piano and sang and all that kind of stuff. Amazing. But that was just an interest, non-monetizable, I should say. But taking that to SoundCloud and thinking about the, what's really required for emerging artists to get their magic into the world. And that felt pretty purposeful to me.
I love that.
All of that. So if I boil that down to, supporting in business operations and growing and doing the things that I find through my own curiosity to kind of like connect dots and make things happen and transform and apply that to a business that sort of is purposeful, that matters.
I love that you said that. I think so many people are looking for that purposeful mission. I certainly hear that as people go on in their careers over time. And you found a way to be close to creativity and the arts without necessarily being the artist, but finding a lot of joy in that. And I think that's a great thing to remind people. You might pursue very creative paths and industries without being on that side.
That's right.
But it sounds like you still derive the same satisfaction from that.
There's two notes to that. I have an 18-year-old daughter who's amazing. Young people today, so this is not specifically her, this is a general kind of statement, are so keyed into kind of being on a certain track and a plan and a this and a that, and I see it. And that wasn't my path. I had a decent amount of privilege behind me to kind of be able to move me along, so I want to recognize that. But I did follow what I think was an intuitive gut about what I was interested in and made that a through line. And so with that, that's the first thing I would say. The second piece I would say is this coming to comic relief was, I never intended to come to a nonprofit. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. I actually would have felt like an imposter, to be honest with you. And the difference is that comic relief and the way that we, create social impact is leveraging all the things that I had done in my career, in a media career, driving engagement, thinking about creativity, how to reach that at scale, meeting people where they are, utilizing platforms, particularly digital, as well as analog, and creating that sort of momentum activity. And then from that, you're really driving a transaction. You're driving a donation. Our fundraising is unique in that we drive individual donations, $1, $5, $10 donations as the lion's share of what we do. We also are backed by the Gates Foundation and other things. So galas, those kinds of things. But, that's the lion's share. That's kind of the ethos of what we do. And that is not dissimilar than driving, transactions for subscription, e-commerce, advertising, sort of like
for-profit business.
All of that, the monetization and the kind of mechanics of it.
Yeah.
So all of that I felt like I could bring to this organization. The big learning curve for me was really around the grant side, and humbly being able to understand, I have a grants team that we take that money that we fundraise and we cleave off a very small percentage of it for operating, and the rest we invest in programs. And we'll talk more about that, but that's, so that to me felt like I think I can do this. I can bring something from my previous experience to this. And importantly, our founder is Richard Curtis. And he is a writer, director, Love Actually, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Bridget Jones' Diary. He created Mr. Bean in the UK. He is a creative national treasure in the UK. He started Red Nose Day in Comic Relief in the UK. And he had a crazily impactful experience on a trip to Africa in the late 80s and came back. And this is the theme. Here's what I do. I'm a creative. I'm not a person that is running a social impact company, organization or a 501c3, the British equivalent. What can I do? And from his seat, he did. And only a creative with a mind like Richard Curtis could come up with something as kind of absurd as a red nose
right.
and turn it into a movement.
Incredible.
And speaking with him, I was like, okay, I think I can do this.
There's a lot there. So Comic Relief does Red Nose Day. Yeah. That is like your Super Bowl, can we say, right?
That's a good way
of
putting it. Yeah,
every year.
In May, yep.
And this is really your big fundraiser, but really more than that, drives awareness of the mission of Comic Relief and the parent in the UK. Tell us about that. Let's start with, what's the mission of the organization? What problem are you trying to solve? And then how did Red Nose Day come about to really further that goal?
Yeah, so our mission and our vision is a just world free from poverty. I think those words are intentional. Yeah. Poverty, of course, is the seat of so many issues and communities and young people just across the board. And that, that ladders into so many things that seem unrelated. Education gap, climate effects, health, clearly, empowerment, youth leadership, economic development. All these things kind of are more intensified for communities living in poverty. So that word is specific, broad, but it's specific at the same time. And then the idea of a just world, there's a recognition of from us, from our, as we look at our work, of justice is important, equity is important, systemic blockers to equitable environments are important to undo. And that happens at a grand, big scale level, and it happens at the everyday individual level. And how can we work against that, So a just world free from poverty. The difference is we leverage the power of entertainment and engagement and joy and levity, which is antithetical to what people think.
Right.
In some ways, this is a movement that was meant to be a little absurdist, a little funny, a little bit of an inside moment between people of laughter and humor, and then being able to deftly convert that into a moment of recognition that inspires everyday people to help everyday people.
Yeah.
It's a grassroots idea that in the middle of a retail environment, I'm buying my toilet paper and my toothpaste, and I see a red nose, and I understand that the person behind the counter is actually sort of like invested in this too, and that there's kids that need help. And I think the idea of centering on kids, children and young people is material too, because in the fractured environment that we're in, I think we can all agree that kids are something that is worthwhile of protection.
I would hope.
And I think all people can understand the sort of travails of young people.
Yeah.
And how can we get that, how can we as a community, a broader community, kind of work to help that out?
It's such a pure idea too, right? A red nose, putting something on your face, inspiring people to laugh, as you say, bringing connection between strangers even, and doing it on a big scale. So walk us through what it takes every year to put that on. And let's do it current days, because we'll go back and talk about the COVID era.
Yeah.
But today, you're getting ready for this. When do you start planning? What does it look like? And then on the day, what does it look like for you? How do you enjoy that?
Our journey to May every year is it's a path, of course, and it's getting a little bit longer, because the way Red Nose Day works is that we partner with brands, all kinds of brands from multiple different categories. The reason that's important is because, Red Nose Day is a consumer activation. It is, as I mentioned, $1, $5, $10 donations by individuals. And so the brands and partners that we work with, those organizations aren't cutting us a check. They're actually just opening up their platforms so that we can access their audiences, their subscribers, their viewers, whatever that is, and figuring out how to co-create a magic moment around Red Nose Day. And, the benefits of that for us, and we have core partners that come back every year after year, but we do like to bring new partners to the fold. And so the benefit for the brands, being a leader of a brand is hard right now, but you want to talk purpose, you want to engage your audiences around that. The Red Nose Day and the Red Nose is a really safe, fun way to kind of talk about things that are hard and galvanize your audiences to do something outside of what you're asking them to do every day.
It really connects them to a broader mission.
It does.
Of other brands too.
Yep.
Of your organization, and certainly to the cause.
That's right.
And I really love that thought, that by just exposing that to other people in the natural course of whatever their mission is, whether it's a program or with people involved, they can do that. Seems pretty seamless.
And co-creative, right? Creativity is in our heritage. When we can sit with a brand and say, how do you express, here's Red Nose Day and here's a red nose, like how can we kind of make something magical together? And importantly, what happens is that so this all kind of begins to start in February, March, April, as a sort of like March up to May, building momentum. And then all of these brand partners can participate on what is the culmination of a Red Nose Day, which is the last Thursday in May. Our media partner is with us, and we have a show that is kind of around a Red Nose Day show. And so all of our partnerships, be it brand partnerships, our grantee partners, participate in what is this momentous event. There's a crescendo. And I think that is, as we were saying earlier, not dissimilar than what you do in an entertainment environment. But this is also to drive awareness from everyday people and at scale, because that's what gets people to act. They feel like they're part of something.
Yes.
You can donate to Red Nose Day on September 15th, November 10th, whenever it is. We're open for business all the time. But participating in what is a movement like that is unique. And so this year we really focused on, we talked about this when we were talking. Red Nose Day supports children and young people, and particularly young children for Red Nose Day. We've just been struck by the common sense across, no matter where anyone sits in community, nowhere on any spectrum of anything, the care and concern for children and the welfare for children is common. And there's been this other line of conversation, Jonathan Haidt's work around smartphones and technology, and the just, what's happening with children and their ability to have childhood.
Right.
So our theme this year, and it's going to stick with us for the next couple of years, is less childhood poverty, more childhood. So for us, it rallies people on a couple of things. Is of course our North Star vision of less childhood poverty is key to everything that we do. But the idea of more childhood is, we want all children to experience more childhood, and it's a recognition that also young people who are living in marginalized communities and communities that are economically in duress, their experience of childhood is different. And there's just different things that they have to go through, and our work is to kind of help bolster that so that there are just less of those issues and cracks, and it's more of a platform for them to thrive.
So you take the money that you raise throughout Red Nose Day, but other moments during the year, and you grant the money out to other organizations that help the children and the communities that you want to serve.
That's right.
Tell us about those grantees. One of your favorites, some of the biggest ones. How do they get their work done?
Yeah. So in the last few years, we've really honed our, poverty, of course, is the centerpiece, but we've really kind of sharpened our focus on intergenerational poverty. And this is a recognition of understanding poverty's effects to be both at a core root community level and a consequential level. So the reason that's important is when you solve things that are consequences of poverty, you're looking at things, and we're big believers in this, around educational gaps, or you're looking around health issues, or health services, that are not happening at early stages. So, these are consequences of poverty that need to be solved at many different levels. And then there are root causes. And that's when you start to unpack things like economic development for young people, economic development for communities, leadership opportunities, well baby checks, that start at the very root. So with that as a frame, the way we kind of look at it is we have 4 main pillars that govern our work. So underneath intergenerational poverty, we look at things that affect education, safety, which is housing, and of course, and child trafficking falls under that as well. Education, which is a huge bucket, of course, and empowerment, and then we have these through lines of racial equity, gender equity, and then building resilient communities. So it's a quite a broad palette.
Yeah.
That palette, though, enables us to kind of look across a compendium of grantee partners that we can support.
Right.
And a lot of that is, I have a grants team who does an incredible amount of work aligning that thesis to the individual programs at each of these grantee partners. And the thing I love about being in community with those grantee partners is that you really see just people who are in it every day.
Yes.
And it's a humbling experience to understand that, and to be our proximity to people close to the root of the issue. And frankly, a lot of the organizations that we are supporting now are people with lived experience, proximate experience. But we also have, and so those are small organizations like GrowDat, which is in New Orleans, and it's around sustainable farming and food, to answer questions around food scarcity and food deserts in communities that don't have the same sort of access to, the food, grocery, and that kind of support. And that's an amazing organization, small but mighty, getting that done.
Love that.
Large organizations, we also fund Feeding America.
Oh, great.
On a, broader scale. We fund the Global Fund, which is a massive organization, but their foundational work in Africa for TB, malaria, and AIDS vaccines are crucial for us, for foundational, community kind of stability in the places in which we sort of fund there. So it's 50 grantees along those 4 pillars that I mentioned, and Echoing Green. Cheryl Dorsey they are an amazing organization, a little akin to some of the work you've done, which is sponsoring or I would call it more incubating rather, entrepreneurs who maybe don't have access to the VC backrooms, but have amazing ideas that are making an impact in their communities and then investing in that. And she's a powerhouse.
Love that. So
we love her work for empowerment. We love GrowDat around, a lot of the health issues that they're working against. We love the Malala Fund and thinking about women's empowerment. So it's such I'm so proud of our group of, I could name all 50, but of grantees, because it's just, they're making it, they're really making that impact. And we're just putting a little fuel under their fire.
It's amazing that you get to do the fundraising side in a really big way, really public way.
Yeah.
And then the grant making as well.
Yes.
Not many people get to see or do both. You're usually focused on one or the other, as your team is probably.
Yeah.
But you have a perch to really see it all. I think that's really exciting. So how do you think about leadership? So you have different people on a team like that.
Yes.
People whose jobs are to go raise money,
Yep.
get to the right partners, structure those partnerships. That takes one skill set. And then to evaluate grantees, to understand who's doing the best work out there. How can we really track and record and measure what they're doing? Different skill set.
Yeah.
So how do you bring your leadership style to that group and to your team? How would you describe your leadership?
For me, and being this age and having experienced managing multiple teams, but also being in other people's teams.
Yes.
And now with the privilege of being the CEO of this organization, I endeavor to bring transparency and humanity, innovation, and a sense of the importance of collaboration and understanding, I don't do your work, but I need to understand what your work is.
Yes.
Because I find in organizations, whether you're in the nonprofit sector, whether you're in, the commercial sector, every organization is now matrixed in the way that they work today. There are no, quarterbacks just taking the ball down the field.
Right.
And I think people need to understand that. And I think organizations need to be routed around that, while at the same time things need to get done. Everything can't be a committee meeting.
Right.
And so first and foremost, with the transparency and sort of humanity that I seek to lead the organization, I think it's around, with a diverse group. By that, I mean in function.
Yes.
It would be very easy to come into this organization and be like, okay, I have a group of people that are actually, and this is true, their backgrounds are, deep from the fundraising and development side. That's all nonprofit sector. They know how the kind of rhythms of fundraising that way. But we fundraise in ways that are actually very similar to like a commercial media background. And I have a lot of people like that, right? Partnerships, digital, running a funnel, conversion, all of that stuff. Press, comms, really predicated a lot around more like that as well as sector. And then to your point, grantee people, team who really have been steeped in how you decide your thesis and where the money, and it's just a very different mindset, right? It goes in that feedback loop, and the sort of KPIs in that environment are very different than the KPIs in the other.
Yes.
But we have cross-team meetings. I have an incredible team of department head leads that are represent all of those groups. And I just, it's communication, and it's expectations and roadmaps and feedback and being open for learning. And my job as the leader of that is to ensure that the rhythms of the organization can meet that, right? Giving people the autonomy to kind of get done what they need to get done, set a stage so that the collaboration can happen without me.
Yes.
And that is trust building. I've been in many organizations where the people in your kind of peer group don't trust each other.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't have time for that environment. I don't want to be in that environment. It's not healthy and it doesn't get stuff done. No. And then that's where you run the seat for innovation, because we have a lot to do. This is a sector that operates on scarcity.
Yes.
I think, frankly, many sectors are in that space right now, given the sort of economic environment. And
but certainly nonprofits.
Global environment. And that scarcity side of nonprofits engenders this real anxiety. And because the variability about, even as set of a plan that you can have, I don't care what style your nonprofit is, there's always a level of unpredictability that's at the top that far exceeds the unpredictability, I think, in commercial land. But more importantly, that unpredictability for nonprofits means it has a human impact, right?
On your own team, let alone the people you're serving.
On our team, and then the people we're serving, right? And so, for me, I want to turn that not into a downside, but I want to leverage that sort of like hunger of scarcity and drive innovation. And you can only drive innovation and change and finding where those intersections of newness for opportunity when the organization feels, it's still human beings, but still feels calm,
Right.
as calm
Not
as it
nervous, not
can.
anxious.
Right. And at each other's throats,
Right.
or like, you know,
We've all been in those
we've all
environments.
been in it, and it's just not,
no,
just,
it does not breed a healthy working
no, it
environment.
doesn't.
Okay, let's talk about
Or
innovation.
Right.
So let's go on that one.
Yeah.
So you took over as Comic Relief US
Yeah.
head in the fall of 2019.
Yep.
Which, as we know, was really the cusp of what was
Good
going to
timing.
be a radically different year in 2020.
Yeah.
Red Nose Day is a very in-person, in real life kind of event. You go to a store, you buy a nose, you put it on. It's physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do at the start of 2020 when you were staring down COVID and saying, this is not going to work anymore? Our typical approach to Red Nose Day has to be changed. How did you deal with that?
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I mean, it feels like a fever dream now, I think, in some regard. But there were two things that really required immediate pivot. And the first was, of course, at a retail location when people were going in, that was all stopped. We really leaned into digital. So our retail partner at the time had some digital opportunities and at scale. There was also this just sort of like, did people want to put a nose on your face, right?
And touch the face.
Yeah. So COVID hit in March. May was when Red Nose Day happened, and so there was still people going into retail, but people were bundled up with a mask and everything, and so that sort of connection that you had with somebody at the register was 12 steps apart,
right?
Plexiglass there. The noses that you would have reached for as an impulse buy behind the glass. So some of the things that we worked on were digital kind of point of sale, right? So how do you, at the pin pad or whatever your kind of register sort of tool is at the time, and they were getting more and more away from handing somebody a card as well, right? How do you do, whether it's roundup or digital donation at point of sale? And that became a way to really pivot that with our retail partner to kind of make that be a little more seamless, right? And then you start thinking about other kinds of frictionless ways to give, and I think having we had a digital red nose as a way to sort of visually, that was the first time we launched it, visually sort of like communicate in social and digital and everything, the sort of presence of the red nose, but the transaction path for that red nose was actually online. So that was the first time we had done that. So out of necessity, that had to happen.
Yeah.
On the network side, longtime media partner side that we have, there was, we created a show for May every year. Productions were shut down.
Right. So,
but there was this amazing thing that people were doing from their own video cameras on iPhone.
Everywhere, right?
And the celebrities that are celebrity partners that are part of our cause every year and get involved, we're so grateful to have them. And folks that wanted to get involved. Richard, made multiple different phone calls and like, we're going to stitch together a show. And it was a delightful, little kooky. There was, oh my gosh.
Everybody at home filming themselves on their
but
phones and everything.
It was just, it's funny. We just had a cheers to 10 years look back video compilation of content this May for Red Nose Day. And some of that footage was in there from 2020. Right. Yeah. And you just forgot that, all of these celebrities and stars made their videos for Red Nose Day in their kitchen, making light of the fact that here you are, but let's do something good together. Do you know?
That's amazing.
So anyway, I think, and that was, it was a good early lesson, frankly, for me at 6 months in, that this is a team that can pivot.
Had to.
We can do this. And not only can we pivot to this, but use it as we weren't sure how long, and nobody was, this was going to last. Are the mechanics of our organization and how we fundraise and do good in the world going to radically shift?
That's interesting. So you thought maybe there's a long-term impact also coming out of this time, not just in the moment.
And so how we actually fundraised. And then, the other piece of this, the third leg of this, which is, deeply important, is that this radically shifted the organizations and their operations that we support.
Yes. Of course.
I mean,
and they needed more support than ever.
We unlocked more operational support for those organizations. We unlocked probably support for programmatic things that we maybe wouldn't have in the past, just because it was so helpful for them to support operations and infrastructure, no matter what they were working on. So
it's a moment of fundamental change. So tell us about your legacy and what you hope to leave behind in that organization, but just also in the world.
I'll start with the organization because it's really the personal mantra that I think informs whatever legacy I can leave. Hopefully not for a while. Yeah.
Future facing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a big picture. Part of the reason that they, looked at hiring a person like me to come to this organization was that the organization had been in operations for about 5 years, and it was really at that time really just Red Nose Day, which is a massive, as you say, it's a perfect way to put it, our Super Bowl. But with the volatility of any sector, you need to diversify income areas. You need to think about new ways to reach and engage. The giving public, and because we really do think about the public as everyday people, their behaviors and their experiences are changing on the double.
Yes.
And we know this from commercial business all the time. So how do we diversify? And how do we diversify by creating new ways to find income generation? So we've, I feel like over the last 5 years, we've together been able to not only, have a strong Red Nose Day, but build other kind of consumer-facing campaigns. Kids Relief, which is, meeting kids where they are on gaming, and so specifically in Roblox, kids helping kids through gameplay. Reaching younger audiences who inherently know that doing good for people is just part of what they should be doing. It comes naturally. Yeah. And how do we create immersive, creative experiences, music, gaming, that feel right and kind of do good for a broader set. We're bringing back comic relief, the stand-up comedy kind of.
Oh, fantastic!
We're kicking it off in a gala. We never had a gala until last year. We're having our second one this year. So these are all ways to diversify outreach. We've incredibly increased our thought leadership position and our kind of work on partnering in the private sector. So a lot of the work that we do, whether it's youth empowerment, whether it's women's leadership development, economic development work, we go through the halls of UNGA and the Davos and other kind of places to find those sort of collaborators to lift our work together. And that takes a whole through line of work that's very different than what it was. So I think, when I look at the transformation we've been able to make here at this organization, when I look at our theory of change that we worked through to really sharpen our work and then diversify our 50 grantees, to me, that's the real top right quadrant of thinking. Yeah. North Star, driven by a vision and architecting a route to get there. That's what I love to do. That to me, and I can see the legs of that through my HBO experience, every place I've been, Daily Candy, SoundCloud, Condé Nast, all of it, NBCU. So that's, a legacy that I hope to leave wherever I am, is to how did we unpack doing bigger new things while still not losing, instead of chasing rainbows, building those bridges to the top quadrant, to the left, the bottom left quadrant, which is invariably always whatever core business is. Right. Keep your eye on the ball while looking forward. And then, for me, if that's a world legacy thing, I think about my daughter. And, my dad passed away when in 2018, actually, before I took this role. And he was it's kind of a sudden thing.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, thanks. It was it's a moment, and
defining.
Yeah. And while he would have never, I'm not sure what he would have thought if I said I was going to a nonprofit. He probably would have been like, "Wait, hold on a second."
You would have showed him over
I
time.
had for-profit in mind, but he'd be very proud because I think the idea of always learning, always growing, always changing, transforming, and that's not only the organization that you're in, but your own self, and having enough self-awareness to understand where you are at any given time to continue your own growth. And that just comes to me naturally. And I don't know if it's anxiety, I don't know what it is, but that is just something that's led, just from all the conversation we've had today, my journey through these.
Very consistent. I love the fact that you've taken so many different experiences, at the heart of it, creativity and innovation, got to a place that you never would have thought of before. I think that's why I feel like such a kinship with you, because I have such a similar story. But here we are kind of in very purpose-driven paths, pulling teams along, building teams, helping them get there in a very complicated world. So
yeah,
it's just a pleasure to hear about it from you. And I very much admire what you've done.
Thank you, Sam. I feel the same way about you. It's really like, it's amazing to find all humans, but women at a certain age. And I want to age you up.
I'm there.
I'm aging myself up. I can reflect back on that path. And, we were saying this earlier. I feel pretty proud of that path. And back to my daughter, I want her, she's going to have her own path and she needs to and should. Yeah. But I want to be able to sort of like help from the sidelines and like the path that I just laid out had a lot of mistakes in it too. And I can look back and look at things like, well, that maybe wasn't the best idea.
But that's what makes it.
That's what makes it a path.
You here.
Right. And so as I sit now and I think about the back half of my life, and I hope it's a long one.
Yes.
Where do I take all of that and what's the next path? And I don't mean, from comic relief. I mean, just in life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things to be said about being this age that are like creaky and old and like, man, no sleep and all the things. But there's a lot of things to be said around this age that it's like, all right.
We're ready.
Yeah.
We're ready for the next
and
thing.
Let's go.
Yes. So tell us the best way to get involved with Comic Relief.
So we are comicrelief.org. That's our website. It is separate from the UK, which is also Comic Relief, but we're separate organizations. This one's in the US. I just say that because people do get confused. We are on every social handle out there as Comic Relief. When you come to the site, you'll see information clearly about Red Nose Day, Kids Relief, all the different events that we're doing. Also, all of our amazing grantee partners, more information about our work, our social impact guide, and just a little more deeper information. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I didn't say there's also a place to donate. Of course, digital donations from the website. And then I should also say, getting involved in community and community with us. It doesn't have to just happen digitally. We have a gala this year, December 9th. This is an interesting space where people want to come and be in community with others, and it's fun. It's a Comic Relief show, as I mentioned. It's actually a stand-up. It will be a stand-up kind of show, of course, talking about our work, but having a little fun at the same time. Very Comic Relief. You'll learn about that on the site as well, but come visit us and check it out.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alison. We can't wait to see the next Red Nose Day and all the great work that you're going to lead.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to my conversation today with Alison Moore. I am so inspired by her career and how she took a passion for the creative arts and turned it into such a long and varied career and journey into the C-suite position in the nonprofit sector. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow it on your favorite podcast app and share it with others. I hope today you learned something that will help you lead with purpose.